On this episode of AV Week, we talk about international AV, how we can standardize the AV installations we do both in the States and abroad. Also talk about why integrators and the AV industry at large care about IoT. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Support for AVNation comes from our fine group of underwriters, companies like Crestron Electronics, and by Draper. This is AV Week, episode 289, recorded Friday, March 10th, 2017. Esperanto Café.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tom Albright. I am your host. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, those of you who watch us on YouTube. First and foremost, the left-hand side of my brain, a fine human being and the best New Yorker that I know. His name is George Tucker. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Great to be on again.
Absolutely. Also with us is the host and with at AV Apps Show. Also a fine AV professional down in the great state of Texas. Name is Victoria. How are you, ma'am?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Last but not least, a relatively youngster amongst me and Tucker. He works for EH Publications. He's the managing editor of Tech Decisions. His name is Jonathan Blackwood. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Jonathan also has a new podcast himself called My Tech Decisions Podcast, so you can check that out on the website as well as on iTunes, right, Jonathan?
On the website as well as on iTunes. That's correct.
Very good. All right, guys, let's kick this off here. I want to start with this, and you guys know me. I've been on this global kick for a couple of years now. Ever since our very first trip to ISC, Mr. Tucker and I and a couple other folks got to go over to Amsterdam. And as Mark Twain said, some of the best experiences you're going to have is by going to other cultures and other countries. Global AV Partnership is targeting new members. Now, this is a group of three companies that over at ISC, it was the quote-unquote unofficial introduction of this worldwide consortium. George, I want to start with you on this. Not just this group, Global AV Partnership, but there are others that have come out over the last couple of years. I was at PSNI a couple of weeks ago. They've started to talk about going international as well and getting partnerships. I got to hang out with the gang over at Verex. They have, over the last 10 years, really started doing the same thing. 2 or 3 weeks ago, HB Communications announced their very first office in London. AVI-SPL, I could go on, by the way. AVI-SPL actually has a stand at ISC for this very thing. The world gets smaller and smaller as all of us are getting, older and older. Technology is kind of bringing us together. What does this do, though, to the world of AV? What does this do to us here in the States as we're watching this happen, and how does this impact all of us?
Well, the first thing that strikes me is about standards, right?
Okay.
A universal standard of some sort is probably beneficial in these kind of groupings because you're not having to translate, say, like the ill-fated Mars lander several years ago between metric and U.S. standard measurements to go crash into something in some way. So that would be my biggest part of that. And there's buying power, I guess, in all of that as well. It just gives a tighter understanding of what standards really work where and how to translate them between international offices. So if you're in US, London, and Hong Kong, actually two of those are probably the same, but you get my point, is that you have just one broad standard that you can apply, and it doesn't have to work in any of that translation of why it's working a different way or why the electricians do things a different way here and there. If I read correctly, they're using the Infocom AXP, what would the global standard that they're trying to implement. But that's my biggest takeaway from them, is that there's standards and a sort of unified movement
Well, you raise a good point, and not for nothing. The states still have an issue with metric versus imperial. As I went through elementary school and high school and even into college, they were still teaching us both, right? My kids, 8 and 10 years old, they're still teaching them both. Now they are, at least in our school district, they're leaning more towards metric, but they still bring in the feet and the inches and stuff like that. But George, you actually brought up an even better point, and that's electricians. Not for nothing, but it's different. It's different electricity, right? It's different, voltages. It's different cycles. As we do this, how do we rectify that, or is it just where, here's our one sheet, and if you're in London or if you're in England, here's what you do. If you're in France, here's what you do. If you're in India, here's what you do.
Well, I still feel like the EU is going to have a huge influence, regardless of Brexit. The EU does consume a great deal of product, a great deal of technology. And the other countries around them are sort of following in line, everything from the way the cars are shaped and how the highways are done to this kind of technology. And I have the feeling that maybe not on the hot wires coming in the wall will be sort of falling in line over here, but we're going to get close, and there's going to be ways of making that happen. We're already using just steel frame instead of wood, and we're already seeing housing developments put up as concrete. So that old adage of we had sheetrock and could put back boxes in anything may not always hold true these days.
Well, and that's not for nothing. The back boxes are different. The shapes are different. We talked with Control 4 at ISC. They actually developed wall plates that are square as opposed to rectangle, which in the States, we prefer ours rectangle. In Europe, or at least parts of England, they prefer them square. It's a simple thing. So, Victoria, I want to bring you on this, not for nothing, but Victoria works and lives in Houston. If you're unfamiliar with the geography of the United States, Houston has a small industry called oil. So that's the reason I want to kind of bring you on this, because as you're dealing with these oil companies, these are multinational corporations which have offices other places. So as you're talking with them, and just like a lot of folks, they want to standardize, their office in Houston. They want to have the same office in, Scotland or whatever. How do you manage that?
So it can be challenging sometimes. Not just in the little details like electricity and like the wall plates you were saying, and the different wall studs and stuff like that, but the biggest thing I've seen is, the adaptation of technology. So, for example, when it starts here in the U.S. and it goes to other places, it's a lot easier to standardize. Okay, let's use, this control manufacturer. Let's go with this GUI. Let's, use this video conferencing solution. But when it comes the other way, it's like, in London they just bought this life size off of the internet or whatever, and there is a different standard, and I don't know that they I can't speak for all of the countries in EU, but from what I've seen in the few that I've worked with over there, they're not adapting as much technology as we do here in the States, and they want, something simple. They don't really, it seems like they don't care as much. I don't know. It's hard, that's just the experience that I've had. Now, but when you talk about a country like Japan, now they're going like full blown, to the max, full control room automation, video conferencing, everything. So it's interesting to have, what I understand from this article is kind of like Infocom, but for the globe. This company's trying to be like a, governing body or whatever. It could be good. It could be a really good thing, for sure.
Yeah. In Japan, even their toilets are remote controlled.
Yeah.
I got nothing on that one. Jonathan,
it's true.
I know some of them are. Not every toilet in Japan is remote controlled. I'm certain. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Jonathan, get me off of
You've
this.
tried every one in Japan?
No, I've never even been to Japan. I'm just there has to be somebody somewhere, in a rice field somewhere that is not.
Jesus God.
Tell me that they're not. Never mind, Jonathan. Get me off of this
Wow.
topic. As you're covering this, how do you manage all of these? Not just the companies these three companies that are coming together, but as the world gets smaller, as we get more global, how do companies like Victoria's, how does SynergyCT coordinate with their overseas clients and maybe create some standards like George was talking about?
Well, I think coming from the end user's perspective, I think that this is something that they have been hoping for and waiting for a while, and especially with global companies, right? For a global company, you're going to have a handful of people who sort of oversee everything that's going on between offices in, as you mentioned, Japan and London and Houston and in Canada and maybe South America as well, and all of these places. Now, if they want to have a global rollout of a certain technology, then they want it to be uniform across all of these different areas. They want it to be able to work in between each other. Prior to an organization like this, that would mean getting a lot of people on the same page, basically getting office managers or IT people or even just whoever the highest level person is at each office on the same page, knowing that this is the type of technology that we need. These are the standards that we want to go by, and it's the end users that are having that conversation, right? And then all those people go out and they go to their respective integrators. Perhaps they're using different integration firms based on where they're at, and it's not, Victoria's company's doing it on one end, and some London integrator is doing it in accordance with Victoria's company. But at the end of the day, if you're starting from the end user's perspective, then odds are you're going to come out with different solutions. It's like a game of telephone, right? You have the person up top that gives the mandate, and then all these other people go out and try and communicate that to an integrator, and then all of these integrators are going to come out with slightly different solutions, and those solutions might end up not working together. So I think if nothing else, I think that what this will do is for customers that use the Global AV Partnership or use companies that are part of the Global AV Partnership, they can be assured that throughout the globe, each one of their offices will be outfitted with the same capabilities, the same type of technologies, and it'll give peace of mind, and it will also let technology mandates within end user corporations or universities, whatever it might be, really come from the top and trickle down, where that's sort of not been possible before.
And what's also going to be interesting is how the regionalized AV manufacturers are going to come out of this, right? One of the things that I took away from my very first trip to ISE was the differentiation between a global AV manufacturer, right? Let's pick on Legrand or Harman or somebody like that, Crestron even, yes, they're present, right? Obviously, they're global. They're the big ones on the block. But you also have regional ones. So these are folks that have no desire. They don't distribute to the U.S., but they have a strong user base in, let's say, France or Poland or whatever. How they're going to fit into this standardization, So I'm the local regional rep for ExxonMobil, right, in Greece. Well, I have a certain standard. I have products that I'm used to using. I work with Victoria's company who's coming at me and say, well, here's our standard, right? We use this product, and this product. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But I have a screen manufacturer from Poland that I've been using for 20 years. Daylight and Draper are great companies, but these are the guys that I've been working with. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how those two worlds kind of come together. So, all right, let's talk about
Tim.
Yes, sir.
I do have a quick fear though.
Yes.
You said regional versus the major manufacturers,
yes.
right? And it's sort of very dedicated regional thing, and we're sort of seeing a trend politically towards that, right? everything from what's happening in the U.S. and Brexit and some other things.
Oh, nationalism, absolutely.
But it's sort of a nationalism, but on a smaller scale, we can see it in the industry. I wanted my regional flavor to keep, but are we at risk with a group like this, than creating a sort of Esperanto Café? Something where we're trying to meld together with a single language and it becomes a bit muddled.
Esperanto
Café.
Okay,
just
you
came out of
forget.
me.
I'm a big dumb Midwesterner. Explain that.
Esperanto was a language in the 60s and 70s, or maybe in the 50s. It was supposed to be the universal language, bringing in together all of the different dialects from the U.S. and Europe into a single language. And it sort of sounded like Big Latin, if you really ask me.
Yes.
But
Okay, no, I get sometimes.
But then you're at risk there, though. You're at that risk of trying to make this one common
Yes.
language, and then some of the delicacies and that intricacies get lost because you have to round off the edges for everything to make sense.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and that's kind of what I was saying. It's going to be interesting to see how those two worlds come together, where folks absolutely want standards, but the local folks still want their gal that has been doing their stuff for 20 years to still do their stuff. So it'd be kind of interesting to see how the big multinationals kind of marry the two together and make both of them work. So all right, I learned something new today, so I can go home now. Esperanto. By the way, that's the name of the show. Here we go from AV Network. Middle Atlantic has been on a tear, and not for nothing, but as a editorial note that Middle Atlantic is an underwriter of AVNation. They have been doing mounting plates and display mounts for a little while now, and it's been kind of fun to watch them develop. But the one thing I want to point out here from this article is, quote unquote, the bottom line. The Middle Atlantic product VDM series includes 17 mounts in a range of sizes and in fixed tilt, motion standards, a bunch of stuff here, doing VISA patterns up to 800 millimeters. Victoria, I brought up the fact that they've been going down this route for a little bit. It's a topic that we've covered a couple of times, and I thought it was interesting. It was time to kind of revisit this. You have a bunch of companies that do a lot of the same things, and each one is getting into different product lines that maybe another one does as well. As an integrator, somebody comes up, somebody that you've had a relationship with, that you've been buying racks from for years, and they start getting into the lane of somebody else that you already have a relationship with. How do you manage that, and how do you say, oh sure, we'll try this, and and then from the other side, the person that they're getting into the lane with, how do you manage those relationships?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm glad that you asked that question, because I've kind of run into this issue with two particular manufacturers. I won't go into it, but talking about this, we're definitely open. Synergy as an integrator, we're always looking for another tool in our toolbox. Yep. And so, we're willing to, meet with these manufacturers, listen to their pitch and check it out. And, but the big thing is, like for us, does it make sense in executing? So we take a new product, can I get a demo of it? I want to see it in person. I got to show it to my PM. I got to show it to my techs. I got to make sure my guys, is it really easier to install? Is it, it's not just about, okay, is it cheaper, better, faster? It's got to, data sheets can say one thing, but real life is totally different. So, I mean, I've definitely, have been open and have switched sometimes to other manufacturers. But sometimes, you just got to stay with what's tried and true, and, what your techs are comfortable with and what they can do fast in the field. That's what it ultimately comes down to is, what's the best solution? What's the best thing? What's the easiest and fastest and cheapest, So, and sometimes people do come out and make a better, reinvent the wheel, but so it is as far as the relationships, it's like, I'm the customer, so if I piss off my chief guy and start buying Middle Atlantic, well, he's going to have to, I don't know, get me some cool tickets to something at Infocom and maybe I'll change my mind. No, it's a balancing act for those guys. And I used to work for a manufacturer, and it's hard to you've always got to keep in contact with your dealers and remind them, like, hey, don't forget about me, So
yeah, absolutely. All right, Jonathan, from your guys' standpoint, as somebody who covers them, how do you differentiate companies that start getting into other folks' product lines?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just think it's, in an ideal world, it's best solution wins. So if a company is getting into another company's product line and beating that first company at what they do, then I think it's up to that original company that's had that 20-year relationship to take a look at what they're doing wrong. That's having someone that's not even in their lane come in and take customers away from them. I think that, of course, you want to go with what you've done before, and you want to go with who you have a relationship with. And, you want to know that this person that I've been working with for 20 years, if something goes drastically wrong, I can call this person at 2 a.m. and they're going to answer the phone and fix whatever I need to be fixed. And so that's going to be something that any integrator should and will pay attention to when switching over to a new product or a new manufacturer. But at the end of the day, it's a free market for a reason. And I think that if a company is prepared to step on the toes of another company that's been doing it for a much longer time, they better have a damn good product that isn't going to just bury them when it comes time to really go to battle against each other. And B, I think that if that is the case, and if they have a better company, then I think integrators should welcome it, because that's only going to make customers happier at the end of the day.
All right. Mr. Tucker, just like Victoria, you've worked for both integration and manufacturing. So take me down this road from the manufacturer side, developing a new product that is I'm going to say it's a departure from what is their core, but it definitely does go against a couple or competes against a couple others in the field. How do you roll that out?
Well, first of all, products are developed for what? 2, maybe 3 reasons: to solve a problem, to solve a problem that is not really there, but you want to create a market for, or to replace something that already exists because the technology is better, right? So those are really 3 motivating factors. I'm sure we'll get letters, people saying there's a nuance there, but look, there's those 3. To that end, like something like this is something that integrators for a while have wanted. An ability to take smaller spaces, thinner walls, to be able to put everything in behind. Nobody wants to see the little boxes. They're not elegant, stackable hi-fi systems. These are little boxes that are functional. They've got to be accessible when serviceable, and they've got to be out of the way when they work, because that's all they do. Half of them don't have fans anymore, so you don't have to worry about airflow. So solutions like this all in one are fantastic. So from a manufacturer side, you say, hey, they're hanging a lot of these flat panels. The business of flat panel profitability has gone out, but can I help you make a little bit more money by providing a space to hide it away? You don't have to buy a rack. You don't have to do this. It's all hidden away. Because traditionally we'd either put it on a shelf or we'd wire it all the way back to a rack somewhere, downstairs, upstairs, or in a closet. This just goes in there, and it's sort of, we've gotten to the point, bad English, we have come to the point where we're decentralized again. Maybe our control systems are centralized, but then again, they're not. If you look at, say, the category distribution systems or some of the newer control modules out there, bridging off of that IoT framework, we're distributed. And the same thing's happening with how we install stuff. So seeing that, because it's also cheaper. I can install it now, come back later, put in another one. No fuss, no muss.
Interesting. So you're saying that this is a way to get around the whole, there are no margins left in flat panels, but this is a way, not necessarily put the margin back in the flat panel itself, but in that installation.
I'm sure part of that was a motivating factor. It's also a solution. Hey, nobody's putting as many racks in, or they're always complaining they have to cut holes in a wall. Okay, let's provide a space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know a bunch of companies do stuff like Wattbox does, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. All right, last one here, and the topic came to us from folks over at Innovate on the Net. It was a video they did at ISC that I'm going to take the exact question and ask it to you three fine folks. Why should the AV industry care about the Internet of Things? Not for nothing, but there's a lot of folks that have been doing panels on this. Our own Josh Schrago has spoken at Infocom about this. I'm doing a class with our buddies over at AVI Systems over the next few months about this very thing. Jonathan, we'll kick this off with you. Straight up, why should AV folks care about IoT?
Simple answer is because AV and IoT will be indistinguishable from one another within the next 5 to 10 years by pretty much every account that you can find. Internet of Things is literally bringing the internet into the real world. It's connecting everyday devices from obviously displays and speakers and content management systems and digital signage to chairs and refrigerators and coffee pots and heating systems and electric systems. So if the point of Internet of Things is to take what's in the real world and digitize it, well, AV is very much a real world craft, but all of these things are going to be digitized. So by the very definition of Internet of Things, AV equipment is going to fall under the realm of IT, of connected devices connected to the network. And sooner or later, anytime that you even set up, there's smart TVs now, there's smart displays now, that anytime an integrator sets up even a simple solution, they're going to have to connect it to the network, which means that they're going to need to understand the nuances of Internet of Things, of how to make these things connect, of how to keep them secure on the network, of how to understand which products are secure and which standards for security are the right ones to follow, so that down the line you don't get in trouble with your customer because one of the pieces of hardware that you put into your system let a malicious offender get into their network and steal data and hold it for ransom and cripple their business.
Yep.
Based off of a $150 switcher that you put in the back end of the system. So I think I've only been covering the industry for 3 years, but it's been a very important 3 years for the industry from everything that I can tell. And I think that 3 years from now, if every AV integrator is in some way working with Internet of Things, I'll be extremely surprised.
No, you're not wrong there. Absolutely, I would absolutely agree with the 3 year mark. So, Mr. Tucker, same kind of question. Why should we all care about IoT, or should we? You can be the contrarian here.
No, because I actually believe it. It's one of the reasons we have a show called Connected, which focuses on this kind of stuff. What? Say what? Who knew? No, but seriously, as Jonathan said, there's two main factors. The future is mobile. The future is networked. And while we can do that from dedicated mainframe or hardcore systems, again, like your stacked hi-fi system, the truth is we are looking at devices that control everything from environmental to lighting to this to that. And while a centralized unit is great, when things fail, we want them replaced fast and easy. We want them updatable. We want them low power, and we want them to be able to be flexible. Everything Jonathan said about being secure and everything that Mr. Schrago says are realities that we have to face. The recent adventures of them being hacked and having a DDoS attack generate from them or originate from certain devices like that is a concern. But the future is, at least on the commercial and low end, sort of mid to high range side, that's the future. Maybe it's not called IoT. Maybe that's an overused term, but it really is mobile and it's networked, and you have to be able to be flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And not for nothing, but if you want to get a scare, AV integrators, go check out Krebs on security and download the list of devices that were used in that DDoS attack. There was a speaker of a large manufacturer in the AV space.
Wow.
Leave it at that. Go check it out. Change your pants later. All right. Victoria, same question here as we wrap up. Why should we care?
Yeah, I second everything that Jonathan and George were saying, for sure. I think, it's the Internet of Things, from when a consumer hears that, someone watching CNN or whatever, because they talk about it, they think, my coffee pot or a toilet, maybe toilets in Japan, right, Tim?
Yes, ma'am.
But, for us in the AV space, we're kind of already there a little bit. We have devices that are on the client's network, and they're random black boxes, right? So we are kind of the Internet of Things right now, in a way. And then, as more and more devices become able to get on the network and become, like coffee pots and refrigerators and things like that, how AV is going to play into that. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it's definitely something that, AV integrators need to have at the front of their mind and fully understand, what are we putting on the client's network? Is it secure? And, working with, because as it is now, the clients just tell us, hey, I don't want your stuff on my network, put it on a separate VLAN. And, but the way that things are going to be interacting and the usability, we're going to have to be on the user's network. And I guess that's the Internet of Things.
Yep, absolutely. All right, that will be the last word, guys and gals. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Blackwood, thank you, sir. How do people find you and or Tech Decisions?
Head over to techdecisions.co. You can head over to the website. You can find my Tech Decisions podcast there, as well as a ton of information of both the AV and the IT industries. If you want to reach out to me on social media, you can find me at my Tech Decisions and also at Blackwood Tweets if you want to get to me directly.
All right, very good. Thank you, sir. Ms. Ferrari, thank you, ma'am, as always.
You're welcome.
How do people find you and or Synergy?
Yeah, so Synergy, our website's SynergyCT.com, stands for Communication Technologies. You can also check out awesome AVNation show, AV Apps,
Yep.
Where I'm a host. And on Twitter, Victoria0429, or you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Victoria Ferrari.
Yep, absolutely. And Mr. Tucker, thank you, sir, as always.
No, thank you. Folks can find me, of course, here at AVNation on Tucker2s or at Tucker2s on Twitter. And I do write for a host of magazines, including Mr. Blackwood at times, who are gracious enough to print my stuff.
Absolutely. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me, although right now on Twitter I am celebrating the exit of one of the worst quarterbacks in the history of the Bears organization. So, yes, he.
Yeah, and the Texans might pick him up.
Well, I heard the Texans and the Jets.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, our
got
friend
Mike Glennon now. So
Gina Sansevero is bemoaning that, and I don't blame her. So
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Cutler. But anyhow, except for that, go to our website. Lots of great folks have spent an awful lot of time on it. And speaking of that, they're telling me that April 1st is not only time for jokes, also time for our buddy Mike Shin's birthday. It's also the start of our new website. So that'll be some cool stuff. So yeah, check that out if you would please. AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv. You'll find this program, a host of others. George mentioned a couple. Victoria's AV App Show. We have 2 weeklies, this one, and we do this same thing for the residential market called ResiWeek. So our buddy Matt Scott hosts that one. So check that out. Also, a chance for you to check out our underwriters. It's what makes these things possible. In about 2 weeks, we're doing 2 different things. A couple of us are going up to Chicago to E4, so register for that if you are in the Chicago area. And then I am heading out to Vegas for Digital Signage Expo. So check all that out at the website, avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been AV Week.